Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Papa Nurgle has decided to strike me down with COVID this week, so it's going to be a bit shorter.
Wargamer
shall be held accountable if
Sultan plays
dies.
We're also absolved if
Winters
gets eaten by the
Warhammer community
Hey, cool! There's a
Dreadnought.
in here.
As you've seen from the title, this is all about decals, so let's talk about how we use them. Firstly, micro set, which is the first part of a two-step process backed up by micro sol. We'll come on to those in a second, but these are absolutely key to making nice smooth decals. Third important piece of our puzzle is a paper towel, one which I failed to tidy up before putting on screen, so let's just fix that now. This is surprisingly important as it's going to be absolutely key to all the following steps. The next essential tool that we need is, probably fairly obviously, decals. I've still got this big old transfer sheet from the Indomitus box, which when the new box comes out, if there's a big sheet like this, grab as much as you can. For today, we're only going to need two, the close support ones. Another tool I recommend is one of these squeezy bottles. It's by no means essential, but it's a really easy way to hydrate your transfers on top of this paper. It's also a really good way to hydrate a wet palette, so I use it for that as well. Also cleaning an airbrush. It's good for loads of things. Now onto why we needed the two close support icons. I'm going to repair two Inceptors from my old Voidwalkers chapter. These guys have been left in a box for a while and need some TLC, so let's help them along and kill two birds with one stone. Make a video, repair some minis. Win-win. The first thing we're going to do is hydrate our transfers using our little squeezy bottle. You could also float them in a glass of water or simply brush water on top. Whatever method works for you, I just prefer this because it's quite simple. Whilst I'm using new Games Workshop transfers, the old ones also work with this method. You just need to be a bit more patient as these big rings are around them. So just take your time and you will get there, as evidenced by this apothecary from the Crimson Fists. He's almost done, he's not been varnished yet, which is why he's still a bit shiny. But if you look closely, the decal is perfectly smooth to the shoulder pad. As our transfers hydrate, I'm going to move them out the way and lay the base layer for the first steps. For the first step, we're going to use micro set. I'm going to apply this liberally all over the area I want the transfer to fit, in this case, the shoulder pad. This is going to help the transfer adhere and start to mould to the shape. On flat surfaces, you probably don't need this, but on something like a shoulder pad or knee pad, it's absolutely essential. Next, with a still wet brush, I'm going to slide the decal off of its transfer paper and attach it to the shoulder pad. I've had a fair amount of practice with this, so the decal is pretty much where I want it to be very quickly, but that's not always the case. Use the brush to move it around and keep it hydrated. This will mean that it will slide back and forth. When you're happy with the location, dry it off with a paper towel. Don't use too much pressure and make sure you use a dry part of the paper. If you're using a wet paper towel, you'll probably find that the decal wants to stick to that instead. Using my thumb, I'm helping the decal mould to the shape I want it to stick to. I'm not using much pressure here at all. Sometimes if you use too much, the decal will still stick to the towel, even though it's not wet. Once it starts to stick, I'm going to go back in with a full layer of micro sets all over the shoulder pad and the decal, and then re-attack with my dry paper towel. Once again, I'm encouraging that decal to stick to the surface I've chosen. Again, if it's flat, probably not necessary, but on a shoulder pad or any curved surface, it needs all the help it can get. For the second part, we're going to use micro sol. This isn't quite the same as micro set, in that micro set is more adhesive. This is much more of a softener, and it's also a way to remove decals later as it softens them and allows you to scrub them off. With that in mind, just be very gentle when you apply this with the brush. I wouldn't use any metal objects or plastic objects to help move the decal around after this. Though you can make some very cool battle damage effects if you wanted to do that. As it is, I'm applying it the exact same way I applied the micro set, all over the shoulder pad and the decal, and then using my dry paper towel to dab at it. There might still be a few small wrinkles here and there, but don't worry, if you keep persevering, eventually they will disappear. It just might need a few coats. The final step of this process can be done with either brush on matte varnish or a spray can. I'm using brush on here as the minis were already varnished previously and I don't want to overdo it, but generally a spray can will work too. I'd recommend applying 1 or 2 coats here as it will really help the painted on look, and it'll also stop that shine that you sometimes get. Here it is after 1 coat, and there's still a little bit of shine, but I'm not too worried as it's under a high power lamp. To show you what it looks like after a spray can, here's another mini I did another day, and I'm really only showing it off because I was really proud of the paint job, but as you can see the decal has no shine and sits really nice and flush against the shoulder pad whilst not being shiny at all. Here's one on a white scar in a similar state, but what I've done here is use the sponge to add some chipping and battle damage over the top to really tie it into the armour. This is another good way to help them look like they really belong with the mini. I'd use the same base colour to chip over the top. So if you've got a black base colour with a transfer on top, chip with black. Finally, here's a dreadnought. With this, I didn't do the whole micro sol, micro set stages. I just applied the transfer using water and varnished over the top. And while it's not perfect, it was a really quick process. Anyway, that one was a little bit shorter than normal, but I hope you enjoyed and found it useful.
My throat hurts, so this machine spirit will speak for me. First, go to Amazon. Then, look for waterslide transfer paper for your printer. I used this one, but any will work. Then go to Microsoft Word, or Paint, whatever works for you. I made mine landscape for ease. There are loads of preset shapes you can use and tinker with. Or you can add pictures you've downloaded or taken, just make sure you've removed the background first. You can do this on Word with the Remove Background feature. To easily move pictures around, use the Wrap Text function by right-clicking the image and using the menu that appears. I usually use the Center Front or Center Back function. This lets you move the images wherever you like. One piece of advice though, don't go too complicated initially, as cutting around the shapes will be a pain.
Okay, I'm back for this bit. Once you've printed it off, get some gloss varnish and spray it all over your finished creation. This will allow the waterslide decals to be removed and applied to your models. One point to note is that the whole page is now a waterslide decal, so you'll need to cut close to all the transfers in order to get the desired shape. If you have any more tips and tricks that you'd like me to demonstrate, or anything you'd like to see, then feel free to leave a comment or drop me a message on Instagram. Links in the description. Anyway, I've been Sam. See you next time.